then the Jinsha one Dachamba Yanda, Zobe Sanje Rivada Shazon Demba Neverish, Jiden Jamba Jivon Deva Kalo Jiva Lanam, Tada Menam Jedemba Sanje Jumden, Pejawa Shaja Dubama Chasa, Should Japsu Shiva Demba Jumden, then the Jinsha one Dachum, Yanda Zobe Sanje Rivada Shazon Dem, Deverish one Jiden Jamba Jivon Deva Kalo Jiva. Lama Meva Kada Menonje Demba Sanje Jumden. Pejawa Shaja Tuba La Chasa Loche de Japsu Shia. Demba Jumden Den di Shinsha Wanda Jumba Yanda. Zobe Sanje Ribada Shazun Demba Deveriship. Jiden Jamba Jivun Deva Kalo Jiva Lana Me. Tada Menonje Demba Sanje Jumden de Pejawa. Shaja Tuba La Chasa Loche de Japsu Shia. Kanze Kanye Zowo Jedam Seya Sajen Dena Komba Debra. Manin Jiden Dena Choje Songa Teze Keva Jona Chahanse. Namda Kunga Shodo Susama Yishi Jazo Sejen Nombo. Chaban Jiden Sumna Lame Wang Gombo Chonye Jona Chahanse. Senjon Demba Chimen Davishi Sendo Dawa Jona Chahanse. Jire Jena Seba Suma Jen Nyame Jenjen Jona Chahanse. Gombo Tuji Jeden Batam Jechen Bedemba Sonam Yende Jazo. Di Shensha La Chahanse Lo Taben Deja Chawa Given Yes on the Duch. Chedo Tenam Chojo Ba Shingir Chala Chahanse Lo Tene Trevela. Laba Tala Rabdu Ne Shinga Tamba Yende de Kindu Maya Chahanse. De Wajian Meja Shinga Wapenzo Soba Jerange Semenyo. Tene Sanje Tamba Yen Karma Ravi Mameda Jumase Wajum. Melon Lada Jenda Bundishi Shanam Dedrit. Sonam Dia Tamje Sewa Yoko Vandam Jinja. Gada Nada Shiva Labri Siva Sonendro Andro Varesho.
To the teacher,
The Blessed One,
the one the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata Noro, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one,
the blessed one, the glorious conqueror,
the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened,
the blessed one,
the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate, with pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme sun's face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, in 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit of qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a
dream,
a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanji Jodo Soji Shonama, Chanju Bado Dane Jasus, Dage Jeso Jeva Sonam Jen, Dora Penje Sanji Dubu, Sanji Jodo Soji Shonama, Chanju Bado Dane Jasus, Dage Jeso Jeva Sonam Jen, Dora Penje Sanji Dubu, Sanji Jodo Soji Shonama, Chanju Bado Dane Jasus, Dage Jeso Jeva Sonam Jen, Dora Penje Sanji Dubu.
I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving the other perfections, I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Sonam Generanam Jishia Bejes and one of the Selam Gemato, Juram Batum, Tebe Mevanama Bagawa, Shero Sijem, Toma, Simjatam Jamba, Chaju Zamanam Java, Pabia Casana, Yangan, and the Project of Tebe. The Shepard Mevo, Boba Sunjim, Sonam Rata, Yanya, Kujata, Chomiship, Kutsumba, Jabata, Sudan, Sumeva da Madruba Dunga number to Pumata number to Kanada, Kajan, the Shilu. Yozo do Wada number to Sivala to a Chivola give a Yishi of the Deva the Majuma. Sanji Jimne de Yishela never, Yangana de Vola, Yanda, Yatana, the Sinjatam Genos, Salation. The Danea Sanji Jimne de Yokucheve, the Yanda number so Vision, Tomaki. Tenzang was interesting, but Deba, Yozo, 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 Yanda, Deme, Tushawa, Yawatu. Deton la Denya, Kavano, Jasozo, Jimden, the Jella, was to be shown to one of the Retu, Retu. Zovejan, Java, Medimba, Major, the Vada, but then by Java, whatever she may be, the Vashu. Tawashuva, the Majuva, Temajava, Vezo, Charger, Vezo, Son of the Pages, Yozo, Jimena. Kundo Jimena Zojuva Chembo, Kangi, Gabame, Chemba, Wame, Dremeba, Tade, Metrovanization, Mozobe, Sanjaman, Tambatella, Chazel. So we are on the page 220, chapter 11, right? True truth. True truth. Rebutting the objection to this refutation from the worldly perspective. This has two parts: repelling objections from the worldly perspective, assuming that arising from others is accepted in the worldly conventional world, repelling the objection from the worldly perspective on the basis that arising from other does not exist, even in the worldly convention. So, objection, worldly perspective, assuming arising from others, accepted worldly convention. And then so I think the born from others is Chittamatra school, Mainoni school. This is a worldly accepted, and mundanely it accept the concept of born from others, and then which means
cause and effects are different entity or different subject. So that also mundanely accepted. And then the repelling objection worldly perspective on the basis that arising from other does not exist even in conventionals. So born from others, concept of the born from other, arising from others. So not only refuted in ultimate level, it also refuted in the worldly conventions. So the Prasangika school says in mundane they do not accept born from others, and the born from others, which means is a combination of the two, arising and what arises and what is causing it is to be, which means the cause and effect are independently separate. The barley seed and barley sprouts are intrinsically two separate phenomena, and one arises from others is the concept of arising from others. So that has to be totally refuted in the ultimate level. Not only that, even in the mundane, they don't accept, right? Born from others, even in the mundanely. So, and then example in the Prasangika school says, when someone plant the, seed, and then plant the seed, and then the sprout or the plant born from it, and then people who has planted the seed will say, pointing at the tree, that this I plant. So they don't say, I plant that seed and this come, right? This is what I plant. And the mother also pointing her child, I gave birth to this. She won't say, this child is born from others. So the born from others is also reputed and you're also not accepted in the conventional, mundane. And ultimately, the cause and the effect are not independent. So independent phenomena, right? Cause and effect is not different. And so the idea of that is, when we go explaining, and there's a sprout is no different from the seed where it comes from. And the yogurt is no different from the milk that comes from. It is not different from. Any result, any effect, that is no different from the cause. So now the question is, if the sprout is no different from the seed, barley sprout is no different from the barley seed. So does that mean in the mundane, in Prasangika school, do they think that this is the identical? And then say, no, it's no different, but not identical. So this also applied in the me and my body. Me and my body, right, is myself. Like a tall man is no different from the tall body. Tall man is no different from the tall body, but tall man is not the body, right? So similarly, the sprout is no different from its seed, but it's not the seed. Milk is no different from the yogurt is no different from the milk, but it's not the milk. So no different, but not identical. And then what you call it is a conceptually distinct, essentially identical, right? Conceptually distinct, essentially identical. Essentially no separate, but conceptually, yes, is separate. Like, hands hand and its fingers. The hand and its fingers are conceptually distincted, separate, but essentially no difference, right? And head and the size of the head, conceptually distincted, essentially no difference. Head and the size of the head. And the space and the empty of the space, conceptually distincted, two separate things, but essentially no difference. I think this sometimes when we negate something, we totally negate nothing, just kind of, when we negate barley seed, this barley sprout, negating barley sprout different from its seeds. So, and if we only focus on the negations, so it will kind of, there's a possible of misconceiving they are one, because there's no difference, no different from it means it is the seed, right? So so the main point is there's nothing that arises intrinsically. Nothing arises intrinsically. Nothing existing intrinsically. So nothing exists intrinsically. Nothing arises intrinsically means nothing that exists by its own essence. So if something exists independently, like the person is existing, right, independent upon the aggregates, feeling, perceptions, and the mental formations. Depending upon 5 aggregates, the person could exist. And then when that person that exists, right, so the person is existing depending on 5 aggregates, but person is not the body, not the feeling, not the perception, not the mental formations. And it is also not independent, different from the body, not different from the feeling, not different from the perceptions. So some people have hard time to conclude it, right? Saying it's no different from it, and then you turn that means to you is if you are not different from the body, you are the body. If you are not different from the feeling, you are the feeling. So it's easy conclusions. So then that the kind of so that becomes the illogical, right? You are the body, so you are the if you are body, the person is the body, and then so if the intrinsically is the body, it has to be element. It has to arise or exist intrinsically from the heat, the moistures, and then the space, and then earth element. So then person become a material. Person is, right? Maybe that's what they call meta. So person is meta.
So Geshe-la, this also would apply to like this talk about like the tactility of like bread, the smell of bread. It is conceptually distinct from the bread, but it's
yeah.
Okay. All right.
So the bread is conceptually distincted from its color, smell, taste, and the texture, but essentially the bread is no difference from the color, smell, taste, tactility, because it is consist of color, smell, taste, tactilities, right? So I think that's really kind of so I think So from this you can understand what is the middle way means. Is not annihilating, and it's also kind of refuting the extreme supreme positional. So it's negating supreme impositional, and it's also annihilating. So, and I think that so Nagarjuna's chapter 27, and the person is no different from the appropriations. Person is no different from the appropriation. Appropriation, 5 aggregates. No different from it. It's also not the appropriation. No different from is not the appropriations. Means without the appropriation, without the 5 aggregates, there is no such thing as a person, right? And that person's is also not a non-existing. So that means, now it conclude is not a non-existing. It exists, but it not exists as a, identical with aggregate. It does not exist as a different from the aggregates, right? So, which means the person cannot be objectively found, and the person is not a non-existence. Now the only possible is, so how do the person exist? Is conceptually, right? So is it conceptually means now, but depending on something, and then you just conceptually constructed, identified the entity. So so that kind of, I think that kind of practice or the wisdom would make you more flexible, right? So there is no anything the solid target. Even the Bhagavan is not kind of solid target. So Bhagavan is not objectively exist, and samsara and liberations are not objective, right? It's dependent arising. Like sprout is no different from the seed, therefore the arhat being are no different from samsara being, right? And awakened ones, the one who has awake morning 6 o'clock, is no different from one who sleep at 11 o'clock last night. No different. So the maybe we'll call, by negating all of them, what the residue left for you to conceive is mental construct. So the mental construct is called conventional or relatively existing. So that relatively existing is, is a, how is it, what do you call it? It is impermanence. It is the constantly changing. So this self of the person is, if your body, got sick, this person is sick. Body cured, this person is cured, right? And your mind is, how is that? When the mind is so unknown of the reality as it is, and this person is also ignorant. When the mind began to realizing the reality as it is, this person is become awake, right? So the unawake and awake. So it's just conditionally, right? So the arising, existing means relatively. Arising, relatively, things exist. Yeah, I heard some master that this is Dharma is, there's nothing to practice in Dharma. So Dharma is all about understanding, right? So practice Dharma is to understand the Dharma. So right, I'm practicing, cooking, right? So to make the food, to cook the food. So once they cook the food, it's just to eat. So practice the Dharma means you're trying preparing yourself to understand the Dharma. So once you understand, you just kind of actualize it. You just experience it. So repelling objection from the worldly perspective, assuming that arising from other is accepted in the worldly conventions. So the first has two parts. The opponent's objections that such refutation is invalidated by worldly convention. The second, the response that worldly conventions does not invalidate the refutations. So what we refute and born from other is refuted. So then it says the worldly, the convention does not invalidate that refutations. So the opponents, the objections that such refutation is invalidated by the worldly conventions. Opponents is, you may claim that the argument we have put forth to prove arising from others have all been burned up by the fire of your intelligence like dry logs soaked into melted butter. So go ahead, and stir these logs with blazing fire of your wisdoms. So it is pointless now to add more fuel. So now you might ask, isn't it the case that arising from others cannot be established without reasoning? To this, we would say no, there is nothing any reasoning can do about what is established by the world. So now saying, so I'm not going to, uh, prove the arising from others through reasoning, because every time I lay out the reasonings, that become the fuel for your wisdom. So mind-only school, every reason become the fuel for the Prasangika school to, uh, to increase the wisdom. So you understand that, right? Yeah. Huh?
So they're saying their reasoning cannot go against worldly convention.
No, the mind-only schools thinks that born from others is something that is is truly exists. So born from others truly exists. The born or the arising is truly exists for them, and sprout and the seed being different is also truly exist. So They being different, cause and effect being different is truly exists. And the arising of the sprout and arisen of the sprout is also truly exists. And why not? The sprout is not born from other. Right? So kind of, and then the main reason this is condition. It is kind of produced. Anything that like sprout is produced by the seed. So the seed is the producer who produced that. Seed is the one that gives rise to the sprout. So one that has given rise to it, one is giving rise by the cause. So the cause, one is giving and one who has become is a two different thing.
Seems like it's just word, like a choice
Yeah.
of word saying
So
produce.
it's the language is very kind of, it's very, convincing. So giving rise, and what has given rise? Sprout is the given rise. And who give rise? Seed. So there's one who is who giving rise, and one that, what is that thing that give rise? Right. So the minority school says this is very obvious, and conventionally we can understand the born from other is true.
You had spoken earlier that we don't say that as a matter. We don't say this tree is from other. We say I planted that tree.
And with the language, we also say, yes, the size of my body, size of my head. The language very obviously is saying the size of the head and the head is two different things. Right? So does that mean that your head and the size of the head are different? Right? Empty of the space. Empty of the space. So I want to make bigger space. I want empty of the space dividing by putting fence. So which means, does that mean the outside of space and this space are different because there is a fence? And then empty of space. So empty belongs to the space. Space has the empty. Right? So that language is indicating they are different. So does that mean the empty and the space are different? Does that mean size and head are different? And so if this is not really proving the two different, independent, separate, why giving rise, the language of the giving rise to the sprout, so one that is giving rise has to be different from what has born.
And like the seed has many factors that affect. I mean, the seed alone cannot produce, so it doesn't have that capability by itself.
Yeah, that's the kind of that is the seed. The cause is not intrinsic by its right. The cause by itself is not a cause. Cause is not exist as a cause by by itself. So the barley seed become the cause. Barley seed is the seed because as a potential, depending on the potential depending upon soil, water, weather, sun, too many things. So the identity of the cause is also dependent arises. Right? So I think this, the conditions, the language, this giving rise, or the attributes, the basis and the characteristics. So language always, indicates the two different things. But in the reality, There is no different. So yogurt is from the milk, but milk is the one which gives rise to the yogurt. But yogurt is no different from the milk. Like me and my body, right? Language says yes, body is the possessions, is possessed by the person. The person is the ownership, one who owns this body. So it seems there's a difference, right? So it's like an air and air ring attached to the air. You can separate it. But how can you tall man physically separate from his tall body? There is no tall man could exist, resist by itself without the tall body. So this is why the minority school says now every reason that I lay out to prove the born from others truly exist become the fuel for the Prasangika school to increase their wisdom. So now I'm not going to use the reasoning. So my final, so proof is, so this is mundanely accept. Yeah, it's mundanely did accept. So then Prasangika said, no, this is not mundanely not accepting the born from others. Right? So, and also this idea to make you see arising, existing is not independent. Right? So sometimes, I also says we have in our mind with this concept, with this thought, so you can, from the childhood to the, adult and getting older, and then it seems like this person has seen, have with, so much experience of the life. So he has much larger life, right? So someone is just, very, in a young age has small life. If this life is truly exists as a large, and life that exists by itself, so then this person is the last breath, right? Some of the lives sometimes, fell around. So he forgot to bring, right? There is nothing. When breath stops, how large is life, right? So life is instantly dissolved in space. So which means the life that he experienced as a large and bigger is conceptually. So, and also the very obvious example is every time when we see even your friend, you have been constantly seeing each other. So every time we say, "How are you doing?" So if the life that he is experiencing is physical, then you don't need to ask. So it's life is existing through your concept, conceptually. That's why person who's just sitting next to you, you have to constantly ask, how do you feel? So I think, so the existing is conceptually existing. So then conceptually existing is projection, but is not a non-existing. It has function. So as for what is the perceived by the world possess great powers. So then the mundane perceptions possess the great power. Means everybody, like a Buddha, even the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, they have great knowledge, great wisdom. Right? Their kind of, their goal or their kind of the how is that? The purpose is to benefit sentient beings. To benefit sentient beings, you have to accept mundane concept. If the Buddha denied every concept of the mundane, and how can he convince this mundanes? So that's why Mindfulness schools, mundane's perspective, right? Perceptions are powerful. So therefore, mundane's perceptions are powerful. The mundane, in mundane's perspective, the born from other is accepted. This is what Mindfulness school is trying to say. So this point is rendered in the following, in the root text. So what use is reasoning here in this context? Thus, other arising established. So we need have, what's that?
What need have we?
Okay. What need have we of reasonings? Okay. So Mindfulness goes, now I'm not going to use any reasoning. I say it accepted by mundane. Given that the world's populations, grounded in its own view alone, assert that worldly perspective is authoritative, this perspective possesses the great power, and that things, effect, that are others, do come from cause that is intrinsically other than themselves, is perceived by the people of the world. Furthermore, when presenting the logical proofs of the two kind of fact, those that we are evident and those that are not, reason is relevant only in the latter case, since the first is established by the direct valid perception. The born from other is, we have directly witnessed. So without how's that? Yeah, so here is in this context of the other arisings, what uses any other type of logical reasonings? It is pointless. Thus, other arising established without recourse to any other proof. So what need we have of reasonings? None. It is established by the direct perceptions, so the opponent might assert.
So this whole section was Tsongkapha explaining their reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of the opponents, what they take is the logic is not working here. So logic is not working because, it's not necessary. There's no need for the logic because the sugar being sweet is no need logic, right? The color and the sound, there is no need logic. It's experienced directly by the direct perceptions. So in the similar, they want to say now, farmers, they have witness. They plant the seed, and after several, few months, a couple of months, and then sprout arises. So they have witnessed the seed and the sprout are the different. So, and today you just ferment the milk, right? And tomorrow the yogurt comes. So this is what you witness. So you don't need any logic, right, to prove the yogurt is different from the milk. Yeah. So if this is directly, so what you witness, today you witness the milk, and tomorrow you witness the yogurt. So it's true that you have directly perceived yesterday the milk, today you kind of directly perceive the yogurt. So what is the other thing that you say this milk is different from the sprout? How that directly perceived, right? So having directly witnessing the milk is undeniably yes, it is true. But and then also tomorrow having experienced the taste of the yogurt is also directly perceived. So we agree on that. Now what we are not agreeing is the yogurt has to be different from the milk, right?
So it's almost like they're caught on the wrong point of the argument.
Yeah, this is, I think, in the Vinaya text, there's one of the vows we call Shime Kundip, baseless deprecation. So then example is Shariputras. So one of the bhikshu kind of, deprecating the Shariputras, saying, oh, I saw yesterday Shariputra, somewhere at the corner of the monastery. And also I have seen bhikshuni on, at the same time. So what he want to say is, he want to say Shariputra has violated. He said, but he also know that there's nothing no one can prove him wrong, because the bhikshuni also exists, Shariputra also exists, by kind of your way of his, putting together and create a picture for the people. Say now it seems I don't need to say there's a violation. So this is the minority school want to say. Oh, so we witnessed the today, right? It's a milk. I taste it milk. I look at it, it's milk. And tomorrow, then I look at again, it's no longer milk. It's the yogurt. So now you just draw the conclusions, right? This yogurt is different from the milk. So so fool can convince more people, more fool. So the wise man having hard time to prove the fool. The fool can convince the fool very easily. The wise need more time to convince. So the response that worldly conventions does not invalidate these refutations. Worldly convention does not invalidate these repetitions. So those who do not understand without the distortions of the meaning of the scripture, so those who do not understand without distortions, the meaning of the scriptures, those who are bereft of the means, repeated study of the nature of the no intrinsic existence that help one part from the long acquainted friend that manifests the clinging to the truly existence of things, something from the ripening of the habitual propensity for the grasping at true existence, imprinted within during the beginningless of cyclic existence. So now one thing is, yes, it's not easy because the sentient being's mind is, under the influence of the ignorance for not just for one life, 1,000 lives. So, so it's not to blame them. Such people might appeal to mere worldly conventions, the arbitrary terms of the world, arbitrary terms. Now, this objection from the arbitrary worldly conventions cannot be avoided easily. So not easy because your mind is habituated from beginningless time in the secular existence and believing constantly that truly existing in the phenomena. It requires a lot of explanations about how the convention of the world came to be. For one need to demonstrate how the perspective of the world can invalidate in the case of this certain phenomena, identifying the specific characteristic of such category of the facts, demonstrate how the worldly perspective cannot invalidate in the case of other category of the facts. To do this, one must first present the differentiation of the true truth. So this has 5: general presentation of the true truth, conventional truth, and ultimate truth, relating this presentation to the actual context. So, kind of in the first definition of the true truth, and then understanding, right? Understanding in the practice to understand the true truth, the nature of each of the true truth. So, what their nature is, ultimate truth, the nature is unshakable, indestructible, unchangeable. And the conventional is constantly changing, uncertain, right? So always has the potential to deceive the mind. So the conventional and ultimate. So objection to the assertion that worldly perspective invalidate the reputations of arising from other. And number 5, the context and the manner in which worldly perspective can invalidate. So now first we need to study of the true truth, general presentation of the true truth. This has 4 parts: how phenomena differentiate in terms of the true truth, have dual natures. So each phenomenon contains 2 truths. The further presentation of the true truth and distinctions within the conventional truth from the perspective of the world. So ultimate truth and the conventional truth. Within the conventional truth, even the conventionally, some are untrue, like a mirror image. Conventionally, right? Worldly, we say mirage image is also not true, right? And illusions, dream. So these are, even in the worldly perspective, considered is not truly exist. And then impermanence, the worldly, from the worldly perspective. So there's no way the mundanely could understand impermanent is, deceptive or unreal. So in the mundane, we can understand the dream is not real. Mundanely, we can understand mirror image is not real. Right? Illusion is not real. But when it comes to the impermanent and conditional suffering, and then concept of many, concept of concept of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 100. So these are in mundane perspective, these are true. These are truly exist. Like, our forest as a one, as mundane, they always understand, yes, this is true. The braid, one braid, two braid. So they think, in the mundane perspective, yes, this truly as one, this truly as two. So so distinctions within the conventional truth from the perspective of the world, how they apprehended the object of which is dual, has a diluted, huh? Diluted, okay, with respect to its object of apprehensions, does not exist even in the conventional level. So the true truths I think, apprehended object of what which is deluded with respect to its object of apprehension does not exist, even on the conventional level. So the mirror image of the face as a face. So mirror image of the face as a face is does not exist even in the conventional, right? So mirror image of the face as a face is even from the worldly perspective is wrong. That thing does not exist, right? So then the impermanence, like one, two, threes, many, single. So these are mundanely, and from the mundane perspective, there's no way you can understand these are not truly exist. Impermanence of the day, impermanence of the Sunday, and the mundane perspective, that's the true. It's the ultimate. It's the objective. Right? It seemed intrinsic. Yes, impermanent. The day, Sunday is impermanent. Now, impermanence means constantly changing in hour, changing in minute, changing in second. Right? So changing in second. So something changes in the milliseconds. So what is changing? So there is a kind of, if we ask, for example, impermanence of the Sunday, is it objective or is subjective? So in the mundane perspective, yes, this is the only possible to know is objective. So what do you mean by impermanence of the Sunday? The Sunday is constantly changing in hour, minute, and second. So does that give you the idea that Sunday is, not intrinsic? No. In the mundane perspective, changing means it existing, right? Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then after the 9 o'clock, Sunday, 10 o'clock, Sunday, 11 o'clock. Sunday is still there, right? So there is the day, they constantly remaining with hours, an hour, they constantly remaining with minutes, minute constantly remaining with seconds. This is how the mundane perspective sees when they think about impermanence. So which means they see the minute is objective, hour is objective, and then the the Sunday itself is objectively exist. So it seems the minute is intrinsic in second, hour is intrinsic in minute. So then you say minute is different from second, hour is different from minutes. Now all of them intrinsic in second, yeah, right? So which means within the second, each second has a minute, each second has a, because of having minute, each second has an hour. The hour and minute is inherent in each second. So when we have 60 seconds, you have a 60 hours, 60 minute. So which means within the 1 minute, there is a 60 hour, there is a 60 minute. So that is kind of, logically is not approvable. So this kind of, the subtleties, the profundities is not perceived by the mundane's perspective. So these are impermanence are not mundanely, is not mundanely unreal. Mundanely, it is the real, it is true, it's objective. So some people says yes, the atma or the person is exist. So this body is person, and then this body is existing with this water. This body is existing with this space. This body is existing in solidity. This body is exist in heat. And then this person is, so you have to say then this person is exist in the water, this person is exist in heat, this person is existing in the air. So the person is in the air, in the moistures. So why not the person is material? Why not person is, perishable physical form? So a person is like, a log. A person is like a table. So I think that's the distinctions within the conventional truth from the perspective of the world, and then how the apprehended object of which is deluded with respect to its objection or apprehensions. So truly existing of the Sunday, or objectively existing of the Sunday, or objectively existing impermanence of the Sunday is, apprehended object which is diluted with respect to its object of apprehensions. That does not exist even in the convention. So generally dividing the true truth. Suppose ultimate truth and conventional truths. Ultimate truth means, ultimate truth means, so usually it's pabi nyamsha, pabi is the is something true, a truly kind of, how to say, yeah, something, yeah, I think from the noble wisdoms, something is found as it is, from the noble wisdoms, from the perspective of the noble wisdoms, as something that is found as it is ultimate truth. And conventional means, in a conventional, worldly perspective, right? From the worldly perspective, and found is real, is conventional. Like your eye looking at the colors, it's real. Nose, the experience, the smell, is real. So that is the conventional, right? So then, now the second is another name of this, the term that used for the conventional, deceptive. So which means, yes, when you look at the color with this kind of, with the eye, you say, oh, that color is real. It's orange color. It's a real orange color, a real kind of, blue color. So now it's become the deceptive means this color seems to be existing, standing by itself. That is also not proven to be unreal for the mundane's perception. So the color existing by itself out there for the eye to look at it is it is diluted, right? With kind of diluted with respect to its object. Color existing by itself, standing by itself, for the eye to look at is not real. There is no such color that existing, standing by itself, right? Calling for eyes, hey, look at me. So, right? So there is no such color. I think, yeah, if the color has its own, kind of its own essence, it stands by its own essence.
So you could have, can you have direct perception with a deluded mind and a mind that sees dependent arising of the color, like a mind that sees intrinsic nature of the color, or the mind?
Yeah, for the worldly perspective perceptions, color is real and it is objective. So the real means, yes, is a conventionally real. It relatively exists because from the perspective of the existing, it is the real. Now, with respect to the color that is standing by itself objectively is unreal. So for the mundane and the mundane perceptions, so both are real. Yes, it is objective, it's standing by itself, and it is relatively exist. So color is not known as it is by the noble wisdom. So color is not ultimate truth. Yeah. Any questions? I think this Nagarjuna's Nagarjuna Chandrakirti's text, and I think emphasizing on the 3 point from the beginnings, the compassion, bodhisattva, and then the wisdom that realize the ultimate. So the compassion is also driven by the wisdom that understands the emptiness. So bodhisattva, bodhicitta, so enlightened mind. The bodhi here, enlightenment, is also, is a conventional, right? So wisdom realizing emptiness, they helping, for generating bodhicitta and compassion both. So here the way the generating compassion is contemplating on the 12 links and dependent originations, right? 12 links and dependent originations, right? So when you kind of reflect the 12 links and dependent origination of your own, and that means generating renunciations, seeking, genuinely seeking liberations for yourself. And then when we apply this 12 independent origination on others, that generates the compassion. So the compassion is through understanding of the dependent arising. And the bodhisattvas, focusing on the bodhisattva, aspiring to attain enlightenment, is also enlightenment is relatively exist. And one who is seeking the enlightenment also relatively exist. So questions? Any questions? Discount now. Yes.
We have several things going on here. One is relative bodhicitta. One is absolute bodhicitta. And then we're talking about the aspiration and the action. And a lot of times I hear like emphasis on bodhicitta is more important than wisdom, but I'm not frankly so sure of that, particularly as you present it. And I mean, can you even have relative bodhicitta without understanding the 12 links? There's some more I wish you could flesh out here about how the 12 links apply to relative bodhicitta versus how they apply to absolute bodhicitta, how this is different, and how even aspiration you can have aspiration without understanding, because if you have aspiration without understanding, then you're kind of relying on your mistaken conventional and distorted perception of things. You can't even really understand, it seems to me, like what bodhicitta is. I mean, even bodhicitta doesn't really directly translate into English so well, because there's four aspects of bodhicitta, and people tend to lump it into kind of fabricated compassion. Oh, I should feel sorry for this person. I should empathize. I should do something. I should appreciate their suffering. But the kind of the Western view of compassion is much less complete than the meaning of bodhicitta. So can you flesh some of these things out? Like, start with how contemplation on the 12th link, how it relates to relative truth, and then how it relates to absolute truth. Maybe that's a good place to start.
I think here are bodhicittas. Bodhicitta is run faster than cheetah. So that's what bodhicitta. So I think here in Tibetan terms we use the relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicittas. Kunzup semge, Tönam semge. So Kunzup semge, Tönam semge. So relative bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicittas. I think the body, the concept of the body or identity of the body for a relative bodhicitta, and the identity of identity of the body for the ultimate bodhicittas. So the way they look at the body is different. So, and the relative bodhicittas is like sees the body is the combination, the person and his attainment. There's a person and his attained enlightened being. So when you see the relative bodhicitta, when you generate, you are looking at yourself having attained enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's why it's relative, conventional bodhicitta. So you are looking at the body is combined with the person who has achieved or attained. Right? Now, ultimate bodhicitta, the way it sees the body is there's no person. There's total absence of intrinsic existence. You're directly diving in the emptiness. Right? So the noble, like first bhumi, second, starting from the first bhumi and throughout the 10th bhumi, and they're all the directly perceiving the emptiness that is underpinned with great compassion. So what it sees the Buddha is just emptiness. So that's why it's called ultimate bodhicitta, because it's looking into the ultimate nature. And by looking into the ultimate natures and back up by the compassions and purpose to going towards the enlightenment. So that's why it named the ultimate bodhicittas. So normally in the text it describes that ultimate bodhicitta is not bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is aspirations. The ultimate bodhicitta is not aspiring to attain enlightenment. Ultimate bodhicitta is simply observing into the emptiness. So that's why it's named ultimate bodhicitta, but it's not the bodhicitta. It's not the enlightened mind. So enlightened mind or the relative bodhicitta is like, first generating compassion towards all sentient beings, and then thinking, oh, I should, sooner attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, right? In order for liberate all sentient beings from the suffering, so first I should attain liberations, or what do you call that? Shepherd, like Bodhisattva says. So first I will liberate all sentient beings from the suffering, then I will attain enlightenment. So their concept of the Bodhisattva, Bodhi is one who has attained enlightenment. So it's a combination of the person and his quality. So ultimate Bodhisattva has no conventional object in it. It's just emptiness. So that's why I said ultimate Bodhisattva is not the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva has to be relative Bodhisattva. Changchu Sem, right? So that's the thing. And then about the generating the compassions through contemplating or developing the divine originations. First looking. So this is contemplating on one's own dwellings and divine originations. Out of ignorance, we commit the karma, and the karma that leaves kind of within the consciousness of the mind stream as a seed. All the actions remain as a seed within the consciousness. That consciousness which carries all the seed and travel to the next life, and then first kind of what do you call it? Yeah, first join or first emerging, right? Yeah. So new elements, and then called name and form. So you have basis. So you have create the foundation to be a person or male or female, not yet physically manifest, but you have this the basis. So name and form, and gradually name and form that generates the faculties. From the faculties, the contact. From the contact, you see color, you taste, you hear the sound, you feel the tactilities, and then you crave for that feeling. And by craving, and then you just go after the conditions that produces that what you crave, right? Like a craving for chai and going to buy the tea and milk and like this, the craving and the grasping. So continuously doing that, and all at the same time continuously creating the karma. And this craving and the grasping become the fertilizers to grow those seed, right? And then the 10th, the process of becoming. So now you are ready to give new rebirth. So in the will of the life, this is the pregnant woman. So you fertilize that egg, and now egg is ready to give rise the baby. So craving, grasping, constantly fertilizing the karmic seeds, and then karmic seed become ready to give rise to another rebirth. And after the rebirth, again, aging and death. So this thinking about contemplating 12 links and divine originations, and you think of yourself, and then you see, oh, so this is the cyclic existence. This is the constantly propelling yourself in samsara again and again, again and again. So which really kind of shape the mind for genuinely seeking for the liberations. So once you have genuine renunciation, then you think that not only me, every sentient beings, and then thinking about all sentient beings, how the sentient beings, out of ignorance, they create the karma, and then karmic seeds and consciousness carry to the next life, and name and form faculties contemplating again and again dependent origination of the sentient being. And then you develop some kind of compassion, sense of care, sense of responsibility for liberating or freeing sentient being from the cause of suffering. So that is renunciation and compassion. So some masters, the commentary, this is renunciation, compassion, like a two sides of the coin. So compassion to yourself is a renunciation, compassion. The renunciation to others is compassion. So this compassion becomes the fuel to kind of further improving yourself, studying more about the realities, and then you develop wisdom realizing emptiness. So through the wisdom realizing emptiness, and that gives you the idea, conviction about the possibility of enlightenment. And then once you are so convinced there is a possible for enlightenment, and then you develop the Bodhisattva, right? No, so you wanted to be attained the enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So within the Bodhisattvas, and then divided into two, the aspirations and with actions. The aspirations, I think there are kind of two things. One aspiration Bodhisattva is because of you have not yet developed the wisdom realizing emptiness, because you have not yet generated the great compassions, but you are in the processing generating compassions. At that time, when you generate bodhicitta, it's called aspiration. So just you are not very serious, you are not really determined to attain enlightenment, but you have strong wish to attain enlightenment. And at the same time, you have a strong wish to free all sentient beings. It just remains as a wish. And the bodhicitta with action means now you have already generated the great compassion. You have the wisdom realizing emptiness. Now, with this, you wanted to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings. So this bodhicitta, so why it called actions means with this bodhicittas, you kind of give advising, you give protection, you give food, you give kind of the beneficial to the sentient beings become, the cultivation of the merit. That so all this cultivation of merit out of this bodhicitta become the cause. That's the causal condition for building the Buddha's form body. Like saying, even out of compassions, you say something like giving a teaching or advice, or even just kind of politely hand gestures is good enough for the causal condition to building the Buddha's form body. So that's why it's called action bodhicitta. Because every action is underpinned with great compassion and wisdom realizing emptiness. So you are already on the path, to the Mahayana path. So one who has not yet generated the great compassion, not yet developed the wisdom realizing emptiness, but you have a strong wish, and then you have strong aspiration attaining the enlightenment for the sentient beings, and then you practice generosity or the patience or whatever. So these are the merits. Is not the collection of the merit. It's not going to be causal condition to build the Buddha's form, because the action is not underpinned with wisdom realizing emptiness and genuine great compassion. Like giving Yeah, so is actions become the genuine, the cultivation, the merit for building the Buddha's form body is because of these two conditions, major conditions, main conditions, the great compassion and wisdom realizing emptiness. Everything is underpinned with this. Even small actions become the cultivation merit.
You say something about because bodhicitta is kind of combating self-centered thought, but in like the so-called, I'll use the word so-called, I prefer, lower vehicle, there is renunciation of the self, but it seems like almost something, I don't want to say goes wrong or is incomplete. I mean, maybe that's true from the point of view of the Mahayana, but they're kind of looking at the 12 links too. And yet they don't ever really develop the bodhicitta. They develop renunciation of self, and they developed wisdom. But that wisdom, even though they contemplate the 12 links, never really leads them, except over eons, to bodhicitta. So what is it that somehow, because they're doing the same thing with the 12 links, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But they're renouncing the self. They're seeing the illusion created by believing in self and other and duality, but they're never really their renunciation doesn't extend to helping, benefiting others. So why is it something is missing there in terms of, bodhicitta? Why aren't they developing bodhicitta, but in Mahayana, at least the aim? Just because you're a Mahayana practitioner doesn't mean you're not really Theravada. In that matter, you can contemplate the 12 links. There's something more that I don't quite understand here.
Yeah. I don't know. So I have to begin with saying I don't know, because your question is not understanding. So I think just because the lower vehicle and the great vehicles. The vehicle means the carriers. So what the carrier carries is burden, right? So here, some people, some individual finds the burden is their problem is the burden, so they want to get rid of them, right? So you are on the vehicle to get rid of the problem for yourself. And then another vehicles is, the great vehicles is not just, trying to get rid of something. It is loading. So behind the great vehicles want to load more. So so they are focused on the strengthening them. So pick more more burden. So to be able to carry, the tremendous kind of, the burdens, like they want the strength like elephant. So, why? Because this individuals, another individual, the lower vehicles, because they are motivated into the path by, renounce from the suffering. They don't want suffering. So they always look for where I can find any conditions that help me free from suffering. So the great vehicles is not trying to avoid the sufferings. So the suffering is they don't consider it as something needed to be get rid of it. So the great vehicle finds, so more you benefit others, the actual happiness is coming from generating bodhisattvas. Actual braveness is coming, the courage comes from generating compassion. Accepting suffering is make you more joyful, more strong, more confidence. So it's the kind of, there's a two personality there, because they all got this idea from the Buddha's teaching. So Buddha teaches Four Noble Truths. The lower vehicles carry in their small U-Haul carriers. So Mahayana bring their big truck. so kind of, Buddha gave the Four Noble Truths for the boat. So the other use the just U-Haul, other use the truck to carry more. So it's like, there is no contradictions. It's because your intention, your desire. So your desire is free from suffering, and you always kind of, go on or kind of seeking the freedom from suffering. So the Mahayanas is not seeking, so suffering of yourself, not seeking freedom from suffering of yourself. They want to find a way to make them more, courage, confident, knowledgeable. They think courage, confident, knowledgeable is the key or main cause to give more satisfaction, deeper satisfactions. So that sometimes it comes from accepting the suffering. So if by accepting suffering gives me courage and confidence, more knowledgeable, yes, I will go accepting that suffering. So this is why in the Mahayanas, they kind of divide the patients, the three kind of patient. Some patient has to disregard, just ignore, and some suffering is accepted. Some suffering is overcome through knowledge. So this nature, some like heat from the heat in the summertime and cold in the winter, and bug bites. So these all you don't have to overcome. You have to find a way to disregard them, right? So you won't be impatient with those cold and heat. And some of the suffering, right? Some of the suffering, and by accepting it, it becomes no suffering, right? So maybe everybody says this is very kind of difficult. This has a lot of complicated things. Some people want to, kind of, so accept this kind of things. They think I can handle it. So more they kind of, go into accepting that, they find there's no suffering. There's no suffering. So, and then that also increases their courage and confidence. So that's Bodhisattva. Yeah. So that's why it's called great vehicle, yana, right? So yan is the vehicle, the carriers. So I think this is not really, and then the lower vehicles, by practicing their path, and they kind of, at the same time they generate the compassion towards sentient beings, and sometimes they change the motivations, right? They change the motivation to great vehicle. Some great vehicle, for a while they're practicing bodhicitta, and then they fall back in lower vehicles. They said, "Oh, it is impossible for me, so I'll just go for my own happiness." So there's sometimes they fall here, sometimes fall here. There is no kind of what do you call the horse race? There's a real, right? So you can only run on that particular path. The great vehicle is not like a horse track. It's not a horse track. It's just when you change the motivation, intention, and then you change the path. And I will also mention into the Dignaka, the great master Dignaka. So he almost gave up bodhicitta, So the Manjushri, came, helped him. So he was kind of constantly generating bodhicitta, and he started writing the valid cognitions. And then there was the sage who came and then said, "I want to debate with you." And when he debate, and every time he got defeated, and he get more angry. And then the practitioners has some kind of miracle power. He can make fire from his mouth. So he burned Dignaka's the robe, and Dignaka was very upset, saying, "I cannot handle one person. How can I free all sentient beings? Maybe from now on I may give up the bodhicitta and just go seek for liberation." The kind of intention that instantly comes in his mind, he is about to change. And then Manjushri appears. Manjushri says, "So don't give up. Continue to work on this book. This will help to open the eyes for many." So this is the kind of, the everyday, when you wake up, you keep changing your mind. Your intention, your desire always change the condition. So the Mahayana and the Hinayana is not just like physically two separate track. Some bodhicittas, Mahayana followers, many times they falls back, and again try to go on. Generally, bodhicittas falls back into going.
I have to say that I think maybe the most difficult point that Dalai Lama constantly is saying, and we all hear him say it, but I don't know how many people really can integrate or apply it. He's always saying that the enemy is the greatest teacher. But when we run into enemies who cause us harm, right away we get very upset.
I think we also find enemies is good for economic. So that's why we want enemy. Yeah, right? So that's why we just keep making enemy. So we upset, but still it's making money. So even in conventional, people there is benefit from enemy. So if they don't have enemy, just make enemy, more enemy. So I think depending on your potentials, how much you can, how much you can use it, right? So how can you make it beneficial? If you can make beneficial from enemy, so enemy is the great, it's a very great opportunity from the enemy. I think everybody do that. Like the politicians, they always make enemy in people, so they can stay on power for a long time. So they get upset, but they also find this benefit. Right.
I mean, the bigger question is, how can we, when we run into such adversity, as someone causing us so much pain and suffering, seeing what the potential is, just even seeing it and thinking, now what can I do with this? I mean, generally we just react, and it's not so easy to even stop and say, oh, this is my greatest teacher, what can I do with it?
Yeah, there's easy. Yeah.
This is pretty tough.
If easy, then there are so many thousands every year. There's so many graduations, many Bodhisattvas. So you can see, this year we have 3,000 Bodhisattvas, and next year maybe 5,000 Bodhisattvas. So I think it's not Bodhicitta is not easy, and also Bodhisattvas. There's a kind of what you call in the mind training. There's many rules for the Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas, they say, should not be considering themselves as So, I'm Bodhisattvas, I should not be doing this, I should not be doing this. So if you think that is also not good, I'm Bodhisattva, therefore I'm not going to say bad things. So if that's necessary, because of your Bodhisattvas, you have to respond. Right? So because you care for others, you have to the pledge. So you have to say. It's not just, I'm Bodhisattva, I should be look very beautiful, very clean. So, in Bodhisattvas, in the Kadambas, there's a story in the Dumtambas, during the Kadambas monastery. So the Dumtamba is the Temba means he is the after the Adisha, he is the main teacher of all these Kadambas, the geishas, Kadambas monasteries. But he himself always, there's a kind of one story that when there was a building in the monastery, building the monasteries, Dumtamba, people find that Dumtamba is not really kind of, behaving like Bodhisattvas, compassionate persons. So when they making the foundation of the monasteries, and then people says, Dumtamba, he doesn't care. He just sit on those. There are small the insects, the bugs. He doesn't care. Just sit on them, and then says. So it's kind of some people find who is the Bodhisattva? He always very delicate and very behave very very positive all the time. So the Dumtamba doesn't seem to be so positive, right? So, which means, so Bodhisattvas, the compassion is not beautify yourself. Compassion is moving. It's like a fuel to do things if necessary, and even that is there is a harm, you should do it. So out of compassion. So there's during the Buddha Shakyamuni, King Ajatasattu, he came to the Buddha and said, now the Shakyamuni, because of your teaching, there's many people follows, many become bhikshunis. Even my soldiers, and many of those join in your monasteries. So I have my soldiers become less and less. And King Ajatasattu says, so is it not necessary to go for war? The war is useless. And Buddha says, yes, you can go war if it's not conditioned by your own benefit. So you can find a way to war, right? Something is not benefiting to yourself. If you can war for people, if you can war for, and that directly is benefiting for the people. So most of the king and they don't do that. They do for their own benefit. They don't do for people. So if you do for people, maybe there's less chances to go for war.
Does that extend to taking life? I read something recently that to take one life for eons, I mean, uncountable eons, you'll never have another chance to be enlightened. But if I take what you just said, then there may be instances you could actually take life to benefit beings. So maybe you can say a little about that. I don't think I'm not asking you to encourage us to go around taking life.
I don't think you can do that.
a little perspective on
So,
just
so there, I don't know. There's the story in Tibet. Great translator, the Ralo Sama. His name is Ralo. So in his life, he claimed that he took life. The 11 or 12 some great practitioners, and then the reason he took life is it's not like he just kind of bring knife and kill. So he kind of tantra practitioner. So he's kind of what do you call it? Spell, in tantra yanas. And he said, because I found that there is one of the practice that is really kind of secretly held by those many masters. This can be very harmful to for the people to believing in the law and cause and effect. And what is that? Says I think in India there's one of the Tantrayana practitioners practice that allows you to change your body. If you find the dead body, like a young dead body, and you can just enter in the young dead body, and then you can live life again. So there's a secret tantra practice. So this was secretly held in Tibet, some of the masters. So he wanted to destroy this kind of method. So for that purpose, I took life for 11 persons, he says. So this practice is very, very kind of, harmful. And then, I think in the science fiction, there's a movie, right? So the man who is changing his body, kind of entering himself into a young youth body, right? So this kind of, and that reason, and then you also know the Bodhisattva was before enlightenment. Bodhisattva was the captain who who kills the one person, the person who has planned to kill 500 people. So that the captain kills that person, and then out of compassion to protect the 500 people and protect himself committing this negative karma. So he took the responsibilities. Maybe it's okay for me to go to lower realm, the hell realm. So I just I won't let him, right, to commit this kind of. So that's out of compassion. So in the sutra, this is this action, the act of killing or kind of in the taking life of a person, has accumulates the tremendous merit. But at the same time, the action itself is, negative, is harmful. So therefore, this Bodhisattva has to fall in the lower realm, for hell realm, for a very, very short time. So it's almost like a ball bouncing back. So just fall down and come back. So that with compassion, I think you can control the time. With compassion and wisdom, you can really manage the time. This condition is moving this way. This time is this moving this way. I will just move. So there's many the ordinary people. It just flows with time. And kind of every time they, drifting, right, by the force of the karma and habit, they don't have any control for themselves. So the Bodhisattvas really have the quality of controlling the time and managing. So that's why in the Mahayana Bodhisattvas, the vows, the one of the thing is, so there is about the practice of generosity, giving, right, giving organs, the eye, and like that. And the Bodhisattva vow says, until you reach the first bhumi, you are not allowed to give the body or any kind of the part of your body. So Bodhisattva, if you do that, you're violating Bodhisattva's vows. So when you reach the first bhumi, then you can do this, because at that time it's no longer as harmful to them. They can cut the hand and they can join back, right? So the Bodhisattva, when he was the practitioners who dwells in the forest, and then the king comes. The king cut his limbs, right? And he's keep asking, what are you practicing? And this Bodhisattva says, I'm practicing patience. So if you are practicing patience, I will cut the right limbs. And then he cut limbs. And then he still asks, are you still practicing patience? And this Bodhisattva says, yes. And he cut the left. And he cut the right leg and left leg. So very slowly. So this Bodhisattvas never give up the patience with Bodhisattvas. And then after he cut all the limbs, and this Bodhisattva says, if my practice is genuine, pure, so all the limbs join back to my body. And then instantly, almost like nothing happened. And then that king was so regret, and then he cried, he confessed. And then this Bodhisattva says, oh, because of your help, now I have perfected my patience. So next time when I got enlightened, you will be the first disciple who I share my, knowledge. So Acharya Kundiniya, so during Varnasi, Acharya Kundiniya is that king. So Acharya Kundiniya, so when the Buddha gave the teaching, and from the beginning, finger pointed at the Acharya Kundiniya, do you understand the truth of suffering? Do you understand the truth of suffering? Do you abandon the origin of suffering? Do you actualizing the cessation of suffering? Are you meditating on the path to liberations? Constantly pointing at him, finger pointing. And then he got the noble wisdom. And then the rest, Buddha just sitting down and without any using finger and keep teaching. And then there was wondering, why is particularly for him, why he is finger pointing? So the Buddha says, so when I was as a Bodhisattva, he said, are you practicing patience? And then he cut limbs. Are you still practicing patience? Cut another limbs. So that's why I do it for him. So that's a kind of, as you see, because of this enemy, and he was able to use the time to complete benefiting for himself. So he cannot perfect the patient with his disciple. He cannot perfect the patient with Buddha. So only someone who is harmful, and you can use that is harmful to perfect benefiting for himself. So that accepting the patient with accepting suffering, by accepting it, you get, more benefit. So I think that's depending on individual who can really manage that, negative to the positive, right? Harmful to the beneficial. So ordinary people, it's not really. If someone really comes with with a knife, you just run, yeah. So I think it's all kind of how you are skilled, how you have developed the skill. If you're not skillful enough, then you'd better not to go closer to people who is harmful. If you're skillful enough and you have perfected patience, then in Walchipik, King Ajayashatru sent one man to kill the Buddha. And he was whole night waiting with, sword, right? And under the rock for whole night, waiting for Buddha, right? The rest monks asleep, and then he can go, to kill the Buddha. So he was just kind of lying in the Waljibik, there's the rock, the big rock, was just lying there. When the Anandas and the Shariputtras all kind of, they go separately from the Puranya, and then staying in their place to sleep. And Buddha's alone, and then he rise up with knife. And Buddha was just sitting, looking at him, just sitting there. And he raised his hand, and he could not pull it back. So once raised, it just kind of become stiff. So he didn't do anything. That's because the Buddha has perfected his mind. So there is no condition for him to receive the harmful from any people. So if you have no karma to get harmful, you will not get any harmful. So if you have, karma, then there is always possible to get harm. So there's after that in the Anandas, the Shariputra, they all wake up. They say, "Wow, that was very, very, it's very how say, yeah, it's kind of they're scared." So they thought now whole night they will protect the Buddha. And the Buddha says, so Tathagatas, the Buddha says, Tathagat, no need protections. So Buddha says, send him away. So if Tathagatas, enlightened being, need protections, and how he can protect, how can he be, infallible protector? So Tathagat, no need protections. That's what Buddha says. So he himself is perfect protection for himself. And then the Devadatas try many times to bring harms on the Buddha. So every time he fail, right? So Devadatta is very, very strong and very kind of powerful, but he still failed to harm Buddha. So that's kind of enlightened beings, because a protector means he can protect himself. He is perfectly protected. Therefore, he is capable of protecting others. So if you are not capable of protecting others, but you have committed to protect others, then you have to carry the gun. So you are still not sure this gun is for protect himself or protect others. So today we have discussed the ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta and generating compassions through contemplating on the 12 divine originations, and 12 divine originations reflecting on your own and generating the realizations, 12 divine originations reflecting on others, generating compassion. So bodhicittas, the bodies, the body is enlightened being. There's a combination of person and its quality. And ultimate bodhicittas, the body is just enlightened. It's not enlightened being. It's totally observing in emptiness directly, right? So that is the ultimate bodhicitta. So, yeah. So in Hindi, in the Hindi language, Buddha, like Buddhist is the, sometimes Buddhiman is the intelligent person. Buddhiman is intelligent. And then if you say Buddhi and Buddhu, so it's oos kind of vowels and become stupid. Are you Buddhi or Buddhu? And then the Buddha is just now. So awaken. Yeah. Okay, 4:26 now. Chanju Simjo Rimboje, Majeba na Jesuji, Geba Nyamba, Bebanya, Kone Kondo Pebbles. Pamasim, Tony Dawa Rimboje, Majeba na Jesuji, Geba Nyamba, Bebanya, Kone Kondo Pebbles. Pamasim Gentamjin, Dedan Denjuji, Gedo Tamje Tato, Toma, Chanju Simba, Kana Suju, Dedagunjo, Molon Jujuji, Carrera Vego, Shingazo, Pena de Woma, Nujuve, Jerezamo, Tinzinja, Shabe, Sideba, Denjuji.
May the precious Bodhi mind tonight get born and rise and grow. May the Buddha have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born rise and grow, and born and know the light is forevermore.
Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all the happiness, and may all the lower realms be with you forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all of their efforts be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you, the source of all benefit and happiness, O powerful Chandrakirti and Gyatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you much. Thank you.